The following is a preview of a Patreon exclusive.
Hello, Patreon folks, and hello, Lauren. How are you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Jonesy is not with us tonight, as you can tell, but that's okay. He's taking the night off. Actually, I think he's already in the chat, and he's probably moderating as we speak. Oh, yes, there he is right now. He says, "My name is Chris, and I will be your moderator for the evening. Please tip your servers and hosts." So thank you, Chris, for being with us as well. Lauren, how's it going?
It's good. Chris is defending us from the spam, so that's lovely.
Right, all of the spam that comes through on this chat.
Yeah.
So this is our, so originally we were going to do our top 3 moments from seasons 1 and 2 of The Mandalorian. And Jonesy was right. I will give him credit. He said, that's probably too much. You're killing you. There's just too many things that are going on. I thought, no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And it dawned on me, I think yesterday, I was like, you know what, we really should break this up. Number one, he's right. There were too many too many moments for me personally that I was just like, there's no way I'm going to be able to pick my children in terms of like what my favorite moments were, right? For 2 seasons. But then I thought, well, you know what? If we could all come back and do like a part 2 to this kind of episode and talk about season 2, then that would work out. So tonight we're going to do our top 3 moments from season 1. We'll circle back here in a few weeks, just prior to the release of The Mandalorian, which is what, March 1st? I think we're about a month away.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So we'll come back in a few weeks right prior to that and we'll do our top 3 moments from season 2. So it's almost kind of like a 2 for 1, if you will, on this episode.
And that makes sense too, because I feel like season 1 and season 2 feel so different that it makes more sense to just look at them on their own.
Yeah. We're going to talk about that because I kind of hinted at that a little bit at the very beginning before we came on air with the rest of our crew. And and speaking of our crew, so let's bring on our first host, guest host with us. And you guys, these guys have all been on there. They're all professionals, all pro. They've been here many times before. But Risk is with us. Cole, how's it going, man?
It's going well. It's going well. Just enjoying the cold weather here we have in Texas. So it's still winter, surprisingly.
It just rolled in. I went outside to grab my coffee. I'll have to explain that at another time. And it was like, I don't know, 50 something degrees. And I thought, what the heck? It was like 70 something just a while ago. So
yeah, it's gotten down to like 35 here right now, 31 actually. So it's properly cold here.
Yeah, 31's properly cold. Yes, my coffee was outside, Lauren. I'll after the show, I'll explain that one. Okay.
Okay. I guess everyone's going to miss out.
Yeah, everybody's going to miss out on that one. Also with us is Cab from Discord. Cab, welcome back to the show, sir. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Hope everyone here is also glad to be back.
And thank you. And I love how you've positioned yourself strategically so that we can see the impaled stormtrooper helmet there on the pike. So was that intentional?
No, but I
even better. It works. It works. Just say yes. Just nod and say yes. Yeah. Whatever you say,
Yes.
Albert. Yeah.
Yes, I'm a mastermind.
And rounding out the group, wearing his Cantina Cast sweatshirt. Very nice, sir.
Proudly,
What a cheerleader. Yeah, Rob's back with us. Rob, how you doing?
Doing great. Excited to be on the show.
All right. Show Jonesy what you showed us, man, because I want him to see those. I don't know if he's ever seen the books that you had there. So Rob is now pulling up. Jonesy, get ready. This is the Republic Commando books. All 4 books, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yeah. Like with jackets as well, which is really nice.
So you have 2 books.
Yeah, those are awesome.
2 stories per book, basically.
Yep. Very cool. Well, that's, I don't know. Somebody that's with us tonight could be talking about those books, reading them, and doing a video on them shortly. Lauren, would you happen to know anything about that?
Yeah, I would happen to know something about that. And Rob has actually gotten me really excited because Jonesy and Rob both said that Republic Commando is like top faves for them. So it's making me feel like I'm missing out. So I got to get to it.
All right. Well, there you go. They've thrown down the gauntlets and now it's just up to you to do the work. So we're all counting on you. Don't screw it up.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right. So tonight we're going to talk about the top 3 moments of Mandalorian season 1. And so I kind of want to start, Lauren, I'll start with you, but I want to know how, originally, we were going down this path of watching both seasons. I got a chance to watch both and it dawned on me, not to steal your thunder, but what you said earlier was like, wow, these really do feel like very, I'm not going to be too dramatic or, overstep this in too much, but it does feel very different. Seasons 1 and 2 in terms of the tone, what they were trying to accomplish. And what the funny thing was, I kept thinking about, oh, I already know what my top 3 moments are gonna be from season 1, and every time I went to it, I was like, "Oh, wait, no, that's season 2." Okay, well, then this moment, I'm like, "Oh, nope, that was season 2 as well." It just felt like season 2 was bigger or had some bigger moments than season 1, but I think there's a reason why. But give me your thoughts on the differences in what you felt, going through and watching these in preparation of the show.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So in season 1, to me, it felt like the majority of season 1 is we're kind of zooming in on a little story that's completely separate from everything else going on in the Star Wars universe. And it's not until
Mhm.
like the end of season 1 that we start to understand that, oh, this is connected to a lot more. And then in
Yeah.
season 2, we're just seeing more and more of that connection to all of the rest of what we know about Star Wars. I mean, like even seeing Luke and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, it all
Yeah.
culminates with that big epic moment where he shows up there at the very end, so
Right.
very good.
And
Risk, how
yeah.
about you? What did you think, as you were kinda going through and watching seasons 1 and 2? What stood out for you?
Yeah, I think for me, season two, and I guess they kind of hinted at it a little bit in season one with the dark saber, but we got a lot more of that in season
Yeah.
two.
Mhm.
And just from seeing this dark saber in Rebels, I'm the animated guy. I love the Clone Wars and the Rebels and all that. So when I get some callbacks to those shows, those really tug at my heartstrings.
Yeah.
So the fact that we got some more story with the dark saber in that second season, they really fleshed it out a little bit, and Din had to accept it even though I didn't want it.
Mhm.
I think that was a really big moment that I loved it.
Yeah.
So
Rob, same thing. How about, anything that was, like, really, I guess, that stood out or anything you felt was, like, maybe more developed or changed your opinion having watched both 1 and 2 and now having to go back and kinda watch these?
Well, I think when I was going through and writing it up as the two together, I really had to make sure that I was focusing on the story of Din and Grogu and not going
Mhm.
off on the tangent of Luke or Ahsoka or all these other stories that have their own backgrounds and their own history. So that's kind of where the focus was for me, was just trying to keep it on the Mandalorian. That said,
Yeah.
I had one from season one and two from season two. So
Mhm. Cab, did were you how about you? Did you end up like, before I kind of pulled it back and said, "Let's just do season 1," where did you have, most of your moments where well, they wouldn't be even because it's only 3, but throw in your honorable mentions as well, Matt.
Yeah. So thinking it through, taking notes on seasons 1 and 2, I felt like 2 almost had, I don't know if bombastic or flashy
Yeah.
is the right way to put it, but there were moments that really jumped out at you a lot more. Not to mention the fact that it's just more recently, fresh on everyone's mind.
Yeah.
But in going back and rewatching 1, I think it really did just a fantastic job of bringing you into what live action Star Wars TV can be and helping it feel big budget but still grounded,
Yeah.
not too flashy. Not to say season 2 was too flashy, but it helped set the tone for a proper approachable level to kind of reintroduce everybody to the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, I think a lot of what you guys have all said is really goes back to what Lauren said, is the focus was so much narrower in scope, right? It was very focus driven, very Mandalorian and Baby Yoda driven, and there wasn't all this other stuff out there. And then the Flash kind of came when we're suddenly introduced to these bigger than life characters and these bigger than life kind of events that were happening in the galaxy at large that we just weren't really kind of privy to. I think that attracted a lot of people to the Mandalorian in season 1, was that we were no longer we were disconnected from all that. It was still going on, and we were aware of it, but it was such a tight knit story. I want to call it an intimate story because it really was really about a kind of father and son. So all of that, of course, resonated with us. I think the other thing that for me that stood out was there's so many things that were just foundational in terms of the Mandalorian, in terms of Star Wars for this particular series. But Din Djarin himself, and then the Mandalorian culture, we got, Beskar. We were introduced to Beskar in a whole different way from a canon perspective with season 1. The Mudhorn fight and then the sigil itself, those are all just kind of, I mean, we all know what that is. And the Clan of Two, we were introduced to that concept in in this season. Of course, we had like the big one-liners of "This is the way" and "I have spoken." I mean, ad nauseum, people were just reciting these things. They became a part of our pop culture and our kind of our lingo from day to day. Yoda's abilities, and more importantly, Baby Yoda's abilities. More importantly, we got the breaking of the seal and the precedence that was set by having montages in Star Wars television. So you can't put a price on it. Season 1 gave us so much more than that, but those are some of my bigger highlights there. I want to quickly go to the comments. I know Jonesy's talking about it already, but Miss Sunflower said, I went into The Mandalorian without watching the Rebels and Clone Wars. So the Darksaber reveal was both puzzling and awesome to me because at that point, I only knew of colorful lightsabers. I think we talked about that when that episode came out. We had asked ourselves, like, who's going to know about this unless you've seen Rebels? Like, that is unless you played, even in like the Old Republic, right? There was black lasers or like lightsabers, but not to the extent of like the dark saber. It's a whole breed in itself. So you weren't alone there. Okay, so now that I've said all that, we're going to go right into our top 3 moments. If you've never been on or never watched or listened to these episodes before, we do our top 3, our top 2 moments each. Then we get into our honorable mentions, which I have plenty of. So based on time, I'll cut those a little bit short, and then we'll go around the table and do our top moment for season 1. You guys ready?
Yeah,
let's do it.
All right. Okay. So Lauren, you are the guest tonight. Or the host, I should say. So give me your top 3 moments from season 1.
But you mean, okay, my number 3.
Your number 3.
Yeah. Okay. My number
sorry.
3 is the first time that Grogu tried to force heal Mando. I like that little face that he makes when he puts his little hand out, and it's just so cute. And that also was a moment too that made me be like, once we saw him try to use the Force, it changed the scope of the story for me, bringing that in. So I really loved that one.
Yeah, and that happened the week before. Like, that episode came out the week before The Rise of Skywalker came out. Do you remember that? Because they were already talking about it and they were hinting at it, and that was our first exposure to, like, I guess Force healing. Again, from canon, not Legends, because in Legends it had always happened, but in canon, it was the first time we'd seen Force healing. And then a week later, we're going into The Rise of Skywalker and then everything that was going on with Rey and what she was doing. So I'm pretty sure they did that intentionally, but who knows? Maybe they didn't.
I mean, I appreciate connections like that. So if it was intentional, then that's great. That's even better.
Yeah. All right. Risk, you're up. What do you got for your number 3 moment?
Okay, so my number 3 moment is the episode named Redemption. It's chapter 8.
The last
it's when
one,
Mando comes in and starts going ham on the TIE fighters. Kind of flies in over, shoots one. I just love that scene. Just the fact that he comes in and it's just like that superhero moment, other than the maneuver where he kind of cuts off, flips back around, gets behind the other TIE fighter, and then the sounds of the TIE fighters, right? Like, to me, that's almost up there with Slave One. They're close, but we get a lot more of that TIE fighter noise, so it's not as like whoa when it happens. Yeah. But that was my 3rd out of 3.
So how, just not to break away from this show, but when in Andor, 'cause I don't think we talked about that, when that TIE fighter flies in during Andor, when they're kind of running through the hills, was that a big moment for you hearing that sound?
Yeah, I think just that screech. I don't know. Yep. It's a classic Star Wars noise.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I also really like the TIE fighters pilots' helmets with the tubes and everything, and the red and black and all that. So I'm not really like an Empire guy, but the TIE fighters look so sick. So,
neither am I.
Yeah.
I'm not an Imperial guy. As I show off my hat here. Rob, how about you? Give us your top 3 moment from season 1.
Top 3. Number 3, I think, is going to be the opening scene of chapter 1. Just where he's standing there, he's got the tracker beeping. He's looking down that ice trail, looking into the city. I'm like, this is going to be great. You're ready to go as soon as credits are done. Just really love. Yeah.
All right, Cab. What about you? What's number 3?
So for me, I would say Gideon breaking out with the Darksaber, very end, and just really sets that, oh man, did I just see that correctly? I'm just blown away. Just thinking of something like the Darksaber carrying over from Rebels into live action. And for someone who, keeps up with a lot of the media, having those little connections carry things through and kind of helping tie things together, even if they aren't, big galaxy spanning moments,
Right.
it's still fun. And it not just has an impact, but it also feels like the fans are being recognized without being fan servicey
hmm
almost and just gimmicky, but it feels like it had depth.
Yeah. Yeah. That, I can't say a whole lot. I had it, I originally had the Dark Saber reveal as my number one. And I thought, okay, I'm fanboying way too much on that because I mean, it was an exciting moment and it was very short lived. And I think there was probably more that happens in season two that I feel strongly about that have to do like with regards to the Dark Saber. So I'm like, well, I'll just save it for that. But I would agree, like that was kind of like what Miss Sunflower said, right? It was such a big moment for those of us that were big fans of Star Wars Rebels and knowing where the origins of that. And we probably should have known that was going to happen with Dave Filoni at the helm, him bringing that stuff back. Everything gets recirculated, everything comes back, everything's connected in a lot of ways. And that's why they've gone so far as to call it the Filoniverse because he's so good about, keeping all this stuff connected in some ways. But yeah, it was pretty, I was ecstatic that night when they did that reveal. So I have it in my honorable mention, and I'll just kind of spoil that now because I ended up moving it out because I just thought, well, it is a top moment for me, but I need to get some other ones in here too as well. So I'll give you my third one, and it may sound a little morbid, but disintegrating Jawas is my number three moment because not because they were dying, which I enjoyed. However, I really now knowing what they know. First off, I think you guys all know I hate Jawas because of one, Pelimoto seems to be into them, so that's a reason alone to hate them. Number two, I think I talked about this on one of the shows, but if you've not had a chance, go read the Wookiee entry for Jawas and specifically how they mate. And I'll just leave it at that. But I hate Jawas. So the fact that Boba Fett was like finally, Boba Fett, the Mandalorian was using what Boba Fett talked about in Empire Strikes Back when Vader says no disintegrations, and we all kind of thought, what does that even mean? Like, how do you disintegrate anybody in Star Wars? And we finally got to see that firsthand. And you got John Favreau giving it to us and showing it not just once, but multiple times exactly how people or things are disintegrated in Star Wars was just like, whoa. I mean, it was like completely taken back. Never thought I'd ever see that on screen, live action. And so it was just a really big moment for me as a Boba Fett fan. Okay, now that I've made myself sound like a serial killer of sorts, let's go to our our number two moment. Risk, what's your number two?
So my number two is The Prisoner, Chapter 6. I mean, this is like one of my favorite episodes out of all of them, but two scenes or sequences specifically, when Mando kind of shows up behind the security droids when they first get down and they come around the corner and then all of a sudden he's just back there and Mayfeld just is like, hey, hold on, just like let him do his thing because this is crazy.
Yeah,
That's pretty sick. You'll kind of start to see that a lot of my moments are just Mando being a badass. That's
okay.
what I like to see. So, and then the sequence when he kind of turns into the Predator, when all the lights are flashing red, and he just starts killing the crew, especially when he comes behind Mayfeld and like on the blinks, he's like disappearing every other blink, and then he's just like right behind him. I think those kind of solidified that Mando was like a true killer.
Yeah.
And it was an awesome sequence.
When we covered that episode, I remember we were talking about, I think we were saying like the aliens kind of thing. It was almost kind of a horror kind of aspect, right? Throwback to like 80s horror where they just disappeared and came back and they're suddenly there. But one thing that really stood out for me when watching that episode again was just, I got way more interested in this viewing specifically for ahead of this show. I got more interested in his background because I didn't ever really kind of picked up on how much they kept referencing the old days and what Mando used to be like and all that. And I started thinking, that would be kind of a really cool series now that we kind of know a lot about him. He's kind of going in a very different direction than, where he was at that time. I would like to see them kind of go back and let us see those adventures with that group and what that was like and looked like. There's probably some really good stories there. And it sounded like he was kind of, I don't know, I would say like bloodlust thirsty, right? It seemed like he was almost like kind of crazy, a loose cannon, because I can't remember her name now, the Twi'lek. She was like really into him because of that, right? Like he was just so, enjoyed hurting other people, even though it was I guess she was kind of alluding or inferring that he was doing more than what really was necessary, almost kind of sadistic and enjoying that in some way. And so it's a very different take than what we got this Mando, when you think of O'Mara, right? In season, the girl, he's so proper, he's so formal, he's so polite. Must have been a really dark time for him. But yeah, I would agree. Like that particular scene, those scenes are really good.
Hey everyone, it's Jonesy. We hope you've enjoyed this preview of the Patreon episode. If you'd like to listen to the episode in full, we invite you to head over to cantinacast.com/Patreon. Access to this episode begins at the $2 After Dark tier. If you're interested in joining a future Patreon episode, we encourage you to check out our Now Part of the Tribe and Delusions of Grandeur tiers. You can find all the details at cantinacast.com/Patreon. On behalf of Albert and myself, thank you all for your continued support, and may the Force be with you.